is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I am JJ Wang. He is the bearded one, DJ Dub. And with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
Okay, everybody, it is the weekend. We're getting ready for week 3, and JJ Wang once again is super busy during the week. And then DJ Dove here, I am heading out with my son for a father-son weekend. So JJ Wang's at soccer practice as I'm recording. So we are having guests on every week, and it just happened as I was getting ready for this week. Our old friend Jeff DeMer was messaging me and we were talking. I was like, hey, you want to jump on? He said, sure. So we have very special guest Jeff DeMer on here. Jeff, before we get started, I want to get you came on to hook me up. You're hanging out with me and I love hanging out. Some things have been going on with you fantasy wise with Downfield Read and whatnot. Tell us everything going on. This is your promo time. Promo as long as you want. Go for it.
Yeah, and I got to say, really appreciate being on the show again. You were the first one that actually gave me an opportunity to be on the show, which is really great. Love doing everything with fantasy football and really just football in general. It's gotten to the point, which is really awesome, that people are starting to ask me on my Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it. It's like, hey, what would you do here? What would you do here? And I must be pretty good at it at this point because I haven't had any negative feedbacks. I haven't lost anybody their fantasy football games and stuff like that. So it's been good. And as far as Downfield Read as a whole, I've put out some individual podcasts of my own. I had my Tuesday morning GM where, I'll put on my GM hat and talk about, what players, where they should be, where they shouldn't be. And, Tua was a big one, Caleb Williams, what's going on with him, and Bryce Young being benched. And so there's a bunch of stuff. So I get to put on my GM hat every once in a while. But like you, I'm always kind of out there looking for other people as well that just want to sit, talk about football, whether it's fantasy football, regular football, coming in with your power rankings or whatever you got. And I said it at the end of my last podcast earlier this week is, if you're a football minded individual, hit me up. I love being, the sounding board. So if there's some banter that we can put in there, and there's guys from all over that I've talked to. One person was an LA Rams fan. One person is Florida Gators. Another guy's a Chicago Bears fan. I don't think he liked me very much, but
No.
but it is what it is. So thank you again. I'm on Spotify now. I don't know if I was before when we did the wide receiver show, but yeah, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, all that fun stuff. So appreciate coming back again and talking with you, DJ Dove.
There's links in the notes in there. I'll put in. You said it's on YouTube too. I have the Spotify on there, and then I got downfieldread.com on there, and it all links through everything through. It links through. I'll see what I can get into the linear notes there for you. Anything to promote to get you out there. And we were talking before the show that this is just for me. It's called saving my marriage. It keeps me talking to somebody else about football because my wife could care less, and she's tired of me talking about guys she's never heard of or names that she can't pronounce. She's like, "What's going on?" So.
Like Yosheva, I had my wife who was asking me about who's this Iosivas. I'm not sure. I'm like, oh, you mean Yosheva, or however you pronounce his name.
I still apologize on Sunday when he was part of it. We do a Sunday segment called Surefire Waste of a Touchdown. And I had his name ready. I was practicing, and then I bombed it like no tomorrow. And I still, because I heard it say it a dozen times on the red zone as it was going there. I was watching that game. It was a terrible game, but I was like, okay, I'm going to say it right. Then I blew it. But it is what it is. So yeah, that's a segment we do. We take basically guys who scored that you didn't start. That it's 1 week I said anybody from when the Giants scored, congratulations, you didn't score because it's a surefire waste of a touchdown. Because if you started Daniel Jones, you probably didn't win.
Yeah.
So basically, this is the spitballing show. We're gonna go through. I'm gonna give you some this or that. Name a guy, ask you a question going through the shows. This will probably post after the Patriots Jets. We always record this prior to the Thursday night game, but we just sort of avoid the Thursday night game because you might listen to it. You don't need advice for a game that's passed because it'll post right about that time. So people, hope you enjoyed the Patriots and Jets. As a Dolphins fan, I could care less. I hope they both lose. I hope it's a negative tie loss for both teams.
Wow. Well, that's understandable.
I mean, that's how you feel about the Steelers, the Bengals, and
the Browns, Steelers, any of those teams that are all playing against each other. It's really, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But I guess at this point in time, I'd be rooting for. I can't even barely say the Bengals at this point over the Steelers. It just sounds awful, but
Oh yeah, and Yeah, I'll ask you a little more about your team as we get in because they're scaring me a smidge bit. So we're just gonna work our way through Sunday. Got a bunch of games going on. Something to note in case I don't say it out loud and I thought it in my brain. There are two Monday night games this week. They're really zagging on us there. So keep that in mind as you're looking through your teams and you're setting lineups. And there's a crucial injury that my brother just called about. So I'll post that as one of our questions that see what you think about it. So Sunday we're starting with the stellar game. Talking about those brownies. We got the New York Football Giants heading to the Cleveland Browns. That's going to be a game that nobody wants to watch. There's going to be guys with all the theme of this week is the triage unit of the NFL. We could spend the next half hour going through everybody who's hurt. I have a really good team and everybody's hurt, but it's going to be next man up. That's how we got to think of it this year to a point. And also we talked about it on Sunday. We're like, don't hit the panic button yet, because if you do have those guys that are out, they're on IR. That's only 4 weeks. They'll be back. Build your team to survive, because if you have the Christian McCaffrey and someone's really mad, pick him up. If they'll trade you for Christian McCaffrey and you can get him for a sack of peanuts, he might play later in the year. You got Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, all that kind of stuff. And don't bite off your nose to spite your face. So Giants and Browns. We're looking here at some quarterbacks nobody wants and some running backs nobody wants. I'm going to focus on running backs because it's running back by attrition. You're looking at Devin Singletary and possibly Jerome Ford. If you're in dire straits, which one of those guys would you throw in there for one of the plethora of injuries that we're going to approach coming forward?
And I guess if you had to, and I'm actually going up against Jerome Ford this week in our Fantasy Turf Wars League here.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to, I look at it kind of like who do you think is going to get a lead at one point in time? Because I think in either one of those two teams, you got to be thinking, if we get the lead, we can't blow it. So we're going to hand it off to our guy. I don't mind Singletary. I wish he was on a better team. I actually picked up what was it, Tyrone
Tracy?
Yes, thank you very much, Tracy. And since I've gotten rid of him, actually, because he's done really nothing, and their offensive has done nothing. And even if Singletary got hurt and Tracy was in there, I probably still wouldn't care, to pick him up. But with the defense that the Browns have, I think that they can hold that really abysmal Giants offense to barely anything. If they got 10 points, I wouldn't be surprised. So I think in that regard, with all that said, I'm going Jerome Ford. He's shown that he can be decent. I just think that if you're going to make me pick one, I'm going Jerome Ford.
Giants the worst team in football?
I guess we'll find out this week. We'll see how the Tennessee Titans do, because I happen to think that they are one of the worst teams in football as well. And I would have thrown the Patriots out there, but they've actually been playing really close games, and they're 1-1. So,
yeah, is Malik Neighbors a wide receiver one yet?
Not yet. And realistically, it's not because of him. It's because of his quarterback. It's because of the offensive scheme. So I like Neighbors. He's got plenty of skill. You see him in the preseason. You see him in practices. He's doing OBJ type one-handed, catch him behind the back passes. He's got skill. And, there was a question in my mind during the draft was Marvin Harrison Jr. drafted before Malik Neighbors, only because he's got the name of Marvin Harrison Jr. I think they're both very solid individuals. It's just that one of those guys has a quarterback and the other one doesn't.
I've heard that a lot. I mean, you look at Marvin Harrison; he's got 4 receptions now.
Five. After week one, it was one reception for 7 yards, and now he's got a couple of touchdowns in there. Yeah,
I mean, he's got. I think he's up to like a 40% touchdown to catch ratio, something like that.
Yeah, right.
So that's a game I'm pretty sure will be on the corner of the red zone. I'm not going to pay much attention to it. You got that hot mess going on. You're going to get to the Eagles and Saints. This game, you get the schedule 2 months ago. You're thinking Eagles pummel the Saints. All of a sudden, the Saints are a good team. You're going to have Alvin Kamara, who had a Christmas Day type game, showing up against Saquon, who's been a killer. And if he could have caught one more reception, 2 things would have happened. I would have won my fantasy game that week because I needed some points not to happen, and everybody wouldn't have that sour taste in their mouth. So it's going to be this one I'm going to keep simple because you're starting your guys in there. You're looking at Hurts, you're going to start. Kamara, you're going to start.
Mm.
You're going to start Smith. You're going to start Saquon. You got Derek Carr there. You got Chris Olave there. You got Rashid Shaheed there.
Yep.
Those three guys this week, you can only start one of those receivers. And is Derek Carr fool's gold? Those are your questions.
Ooh, I can only start one receiver on the Saints.
On the Saints, you got to start a Saints receiver.
I would go with just based off the first couple of weeks because Olave was one of those guys that disappeared in week 1 as well. So, Rashid Shaheed, I would go with him for sure.
I love him.
Yeah. And is Derek Carr fool's gold? You're asking the wrong guy. Because if anyone who has followed me religiously this year, I did a quarterback show. I almost put Derek Carr in my top 10. I think he was number 11, number 12. Well, I don't know. And that's the response that I was getting.
But you're right.
And
you're not wrong.
Yeah, and he's flown off the waiver wires. I was too late in trying to get him. I thought I'd get him as a backup. I'm not a Carr hater. I like Carr. I really think he's a very efficient quarterback. I think they're really clicking this year. It's the difference between clicking with your guys and not clicking maybe in your first year last year.
Yeah.
I also picked the New Orleans Saints to win their division this year as well. So check out my previous shows and stuff for that. I'm not BSing anyone, just jumping on the bandwagon. I really do believe in Derek Carr, and they've got the weapons to be a very powerful offense as they've shown, almost putting up 100 points in 2 weeks. Is crazy. So yeah, definitely not fool's gold. I'd jump on Derek Carr. I'd take that one.
Yeah, I fall on the Derek Carr indifference. JJ Wang hates Derek Carr, loathes Derek Carr, does not like Derek Carr whatsoever. Like, I didn't think this. I thought the Saints were going to be pretty bad. I didn't see this because they looked so flat, and I was like, wow, okay, let's go. And they're doing this without Chris Olave. Get Chris Olave last week. He started to jump up. Get him to Chris Olave level with Shaheed.
Yeah, isn't that the scary thing too? And that's kind of what I said going into week 2. It's like, man, they put up almost 50 points in week 1 without Olave doing anything. And then you got this tight end that nobody's heard of, Foster Moreau. I mean, Taysom Hill is still in that mix, and they got Johnson. Johnson, thank you.
Yeah.
And who is going to be the starting tight end there? And, he had a great first fantasy week, but then on the second week, speaking of Moreau anyway, so they've got weapons is basically what my point is. Besides the wide receivers that you mentioned before, they've got a way that they can kill you if you ease up on them.
Defense. Yeah. They got a good defense. That's what's saving them. That's I thought fantasy brained, not NFL brained, is why I had them tanked. So moving on to what I think could be the best game of the 1:00 slate. Texans and Vikings. We have the surprisingly decent Sam Darnolds over there. With Jay Jetta, looks like he's probably going to play this week. Have you seen an update on Addison? I have not pulled that. I was pulling up injuries. Is anything updated on him as far as, will he be out again or is he playing this week?
I did not see anything on Addison. I think he was still projected to not play. But Jefferson actually came out and said, I'm going to play.
Yeah, I saw that
quad contusion, not a big deal apparently, or, maybe he just gets it rubbed or heated or whatever he's got to do. But I can't imagine that JJ is not going to play in that game. I love that slate too. The Houston Texans have been playing very well, even in their first week going into division rival Indianapolis, winning by 2, maybe. I think it was 29-27. But then you go, okay, how about Minnesota? They took care of San Fran at home and did it kind of handedly. They were ahead. It was kind of a remarkable game. And here's a fun fact for you. San Francisco 49ers have not won in Minnesota since 1992. Why is that? And I get that you only play there every 8 years, but it's been 30 years since, So San Fran can't seem to win in Minnesota. And I thought that when I picked San Fran last week, and I will preface all of this by saying last week was a terrible week for picking games. I think I went 5-11 with all of the upsets that happened.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't good.
Yeah, it's that it. And so are the Texans? I had a discussion with a guy on Saturday. Are the Texans the best team in football right now?
I think you might be able to argue that. I think Detroit also has to be mentioned in there. And of course, people are going to put in Kansas City, even though I'm not a fan. Mahomes has been mediocre this year. I think they are getting calls, but we don't need to get into that.
Yeah.
They're two very close games that could have went either way. I mean, realistically, they could be 0-2, but they're 2-0. Just like some other teams who might be 0-2 that could be 2-0. But yeah, I think they have to be in the talks. And somebody asked me the other day, are we going to start considering CJ Stroud as a top 5 quarterback? And I'm going to say wait until after this week. If he can do this, I think you have to start putting Stroud in the top 5 conversations for sure.
I mean, I was more worried. I did an article before the season that Stroud could be, not because he's going to be bad, but he could be one of the disappointments of the year because he doesn't run. He's a pocket passer, but he's just pocket passing his brains out. Like that team is so fun to watch. I love D'Amico Ryans. I had him on my fantasy team back in the day as when I had one IDP here, and they're just fun to watch. Diggs apparently became an adult because he is like coaching up the guys, encouraging people. And I mean, he had to come here realizing that he is 3. He's ended up being 2 more or less because Tank Down him have been sort of like that. But it's been encouraging, and that's going to be the difference as long as Joe Mixon is.
When are they going to start calling that hip drop tackle a penalty? I mean, that's what he got hurt on. That's what he got rolled up on. That's what we talked about Jordan Addison before. That's what he got rolled up on. They've got a lot of weapons on that offense, which is really fantastic. They've got the recipe for success there. CJ Stroud, when you mentioned him, when he's in the pocket there, he does not take off. He scrambles within the pocket and he's continuously looking downfield at his wide receivers and checking down. That's why he's completing over 5% of his passes. He gets it out to his guys. And it looks like Nico Collins is the clear-cut number 1 there, but then you've got Stephon Diggs, who had, I think, just as many receptions as Nico did last week, but he's getting the touchdowns for it. I mean, I think they're going to the more experienced guy in the red zone because Nico seems to have the yardage for it, but he's not getting the scores quite yet.
And then Nico, I love coming out of college. Everybody's like, oh, he's just some big guy. He's not going to be much. I had him in Dynasty, and I got him for pennies on the dollar. It's been spectacular watching him explode on my Dynasty team. But I love that team, and I'll be interested to see. I think if Mixon doesn't play, Akers is intriguing.
He's intriguing. I think
guy you want to play, but intriguing on that Singletary Ford. If you got Singletary Ford, Akers, that's a better offense, and he could sneak in some sneaky stuff.
Well, and then at that point, maybe Dalton Schultz can start to do something on that offense because he hasn't done anything in 2 weeks. So they've almost got him as a check down at this point. But yeah, a lot of weapons.
Yeah. So that should be a fun game. Excited for that. Broncos at Buccaneers. Man, are we talking about the Broncos as another one of those worst teams in the league? Is Sean Payton lost it?
I really had a lot of hope for Denver. Really did, especially in the preseason. I mean, Bo Nix looked like he was going to be something spectacular. He was completing 70-something% of his passes in the preseason, and it looked like it was going to really take off. The running game has not taken off, and that's what's really hurting them. They can't get anything. They're averaging 2.5, maybe 3 yards per carry. It's not good. I thought McLaughlin would be a little bit better, but I think, I think you got to start to put him in that category. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, but they've got a tough division now. Not only KC, but you've got 2-0 Chargers in there. The Raiders just went to Baltimore and beat up on them, so it very well could be the Raiders at the basement of that division. But this game, I don't know if I would call it intriguing or not. I think Tampa Bay is obviously the better team there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win by double digits, honestly.
I mean, and the interesting thing is the over-under might be on average running back yards per carry. Rachaad White might get 2.3. The Broncos might get 2.4.
Yeah. Isn't that awful? And he did the same thing last year. Rachaad White, he had the second most amount of carries in the league right behind Christian McCaffrey, but couldn't even break 1,000 yards.
Yep.
So that running game, I don't know why they can't open that up with the guys that you've got on the outside there. You've got Evans, you've got Godwin. You can't open that up for a little bit more running room. I just don't understand that.
Yeah, and Bucky Irving, they thought he'd bounce up. He pooped the bed, so it was a rough kind of week. I mean, I loved seeing Chris Godwin come back. That's been a good resurgence to know that it wasn't just Tom Brady. How close is Baker Mayfield to being a top 12 quarterback?
How, speaking of Baker Mayfield, we just kind of hinted at or talked about a little bit ago, Bryce Young. Baker Mayfield came from Carolina at one point. Sam Darnold We talked about Minnesota. They're 2-0, came from Carolina. Is it Bryce Young's fault, or can they just not develop a quarterback? Mayfield is kind of an anomaly. I thought I've seen where he almost gives me a Johnny Manziel or maybe a Doug Flutie type of vibe, you
Yeah.
know. But then he comes out and he seems really smart, and maybe he's just kind of come into himself versus the first few years where he was always getting hurt. He seems like he's more relaxed in the pocket. Obviously, he's got some great weapons there. Um, yeah, I would kind of put him in that Derek Carr type of you're barely cracking the top 10. I don't know if I'm really sold on Baker yet, though.
Yeah, I'm a Baker guy. I said that. I think that guy. He went from Cleveland to Carolina. Luckily, he got mentor. He got mentor. He was the Rams, right? Yeah, he got mentored
Yep.
over in Los
Yep.
Angeles. So that's, I think, what's helped him. And then I liked the signing last year. JJ Wang's finally eating crow, and that one's been great. So Packers, and who you think might be the worst team in the NFL, the Tennessee Titans. I don't want them to be. I like Will Levis, and I don't know why. There's no reason other than mayonnaise and bananas, but that's why I love Will Levis. And every time I think he looks good, then he does something stupid, and then you got I mean, this is an intriguing game of who do you want to? I mean, Josh Jacobs got 31 carries last week. Malik Willis did what Malik Willis had to do. You don't know which Packers receiver to start because Wicks, who I cleared everywhere because he didn't do diddly squat, scored a cheap touchdown. Christian Watson zeroed me. I don't like Christian Watson, so they just made it even worse for me. And I got him in some places because he was so cheap. And then the Titans, Calvin Ridley, that catch to score that touchdown was awesome.
That
And then
was
Will Levis
I had to watch that 2 or 3 times to see how he actually did that. I was serious.
I don't know.
That he didn't catch that. There's no way he caught that. I was happy though because I've got Calvin Ridley in our fantasy turf wars league, and he saved my butt last week. But I think this one you might be able to put up there for one of the uglier games of the week. I'm not sold on Malik Willis. I think he had an outstanding game for Malik Willis. I mean, we saw what he can't do in 2 years in Tennessee, which is funny that he's going back there now to play in this one.
Game.
Yeah, it could be a revenge game, but I'm thinking you're gonna have to clean your sheets after this one because he's gonna crap the bed. And honestly, if they just don't come out running the ball, I'm not sure what their game plan is. Yeah, they've got all those weapons with Watson and Doubs and Wicks, but they sure aren't using them. I should say they sure aren't using them in a regular fashion. So the offense to me is a little suspect. And then you've got Tennessee, who I didn't put any faith in either. Pollard had a really good game last week. But after what he did in Dallas, I wasn't really sold on him. I think we might have even talked about watch out for Calvin Ridley when we did the wide receiver
I'm a
show.
Calvin Ridley guy.
Yeah.
I'm on I thought that the Titans are gonna air it out, and they've just been sloppy. But it is 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. But I thought they'd air it out. I have a buddy he was talking to me. He's like, dude, don't give up on Will Levis yet. Just wait, see what happens. I'm not as down on the Titans as you are. I'm disappointed in them, but I'm not down on them. I'm not giving up yet because it is 2 weeks, and it's the Malik Willis revenge game, right?
Yeah, it'll be fun if he does win it, but I think he's going to get squashed, and Tennessee Titan fans are going to be happy about the fact that they don't have him. That's my
defense. But here's the zag: there is Jordan Love coming out. Are they going to be that like there? He was in pads. Today's Thursday. He was in pads practicing. They can't, can they? They're playing the Titans. They know they're bad.
I don't know why you would. You've got a partial MCL tear in your franchise quarterback. You're going to rush him back to play in a crappy game that you might be able to win with a backup. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that's for show.
I hope it's just that like messing with the coaches kind of things. But yeah, I was devastated. I finally got my first Jordan Love share in one league, and I was like, yes. And then I watched the game, and come on, don't do that. Okay, you're the Bears and the Colts. The quarterback efficiency in this game, over or under 47% for both quarterbacks passing completion percentage.
Man, is that hard. Because you look at Caleb Williams, and we talked about Caleb before, and I'm not a fan. I don't think he's going to be good at all. I've already said it, and I'm not trying to hate on the guy. If I would have told you that Bryce Young was no good and he was going to go 2 for 19, you'd say, "Oh, you're just being a hater and you don't whatever." No, there's something. This is this is kind of what I thought in the back of my head. What might happen to Caleb? I don't think he's mentally prepared
Yeah.
to go in and lose 2 games, potentially 3 games, potentially, and then what? And then what? And then what? For guys that have been playing in the league for years, even I'll bring up the Ravens again. They're 0-2. You've got guys in the locker room that have to be questioning, well, what is it that we're doing? Like, there's something really, really wrong here. At the end of the day, you got to, look in the mirror and just own it. But they've got all these weapons. They were bragging about it. Caleb Williams is bringing football back to the NFC North, and they're going to win that division, and blah 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 blah. And he's not. He's been horrible. He really has. 47% completion percentage in 1 game. And if you watch him play, he's overthrowing by 5 yards. He's underthrowing by 5 yards. He's taken sacks for, negative 10, 15, 20 yards. DJ Moore is visibly not happy with the situation there in Chicago, and he just looks uncomfortable. Caleb Williams back there looks like he's got happy feet, like he just got the playbook an hour ago, and he's not really quite sure what to do. Um, I'm more surprised that Anthony Richardson is not better. I figured,
I was a Richardson guy, so I'm right there with it.
Yeah, I wasn't originally, and I'm not still, but he had a whole year to sit and just watch because he got hurt early. He got to, learn the playbook a little bit more, maybe he had that 1 year advantage, I will say, over Caleb, but this guy, I don't know. Pittman is tanking because of it. Alec Pierce is the only one that's actually thrived.
Great. Get him starting. I picked him up, and I might have to start him in the Turf Wars.
Yeah, if the over under is 47%, I would take the over, but not by much. If you said 52%, I might take the under.
Yeah, I mean, Williams got up to 62 last week, but he threw for a whopping 174 and 2 interceptions. Yeah, my whole statement on him is I didn't believe in him. If he feels, it's his fault. You cannot tell me that you're a good quarterback with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, a receiving running back there. Khalil Herbert's a good running back backup. You got Adunze. There are athletes there, and if you can't compete with them, especially 2 of them that we know are good players, you are the problem. And Anthony Richardson's what I thought. Like, I didn't like him coming in. I looked at his college profile. He won nothing, and he was never like Anthony Richardson is a stellar athlete, probably one of the top athletes in the entire league. But that doesn't make you the best football player because apparently you overthrow your receivers by miles. And I didn't think he'd be. I don't know. Like I thought I had a little bit of faith. I think I threw him in some DFSs thinking grab his legs and go for it. And then we're arguing is you watched it. Lamar, the stat lines are kind of similar percentage. Like Lamar, he would throw for like 200 maybe. And his completion percentage wasn't great, but he ran his brains out. But now Lamar, I think he looks really confident passer. Watching him pass, he looks so much better.
Yeah.
That's the trajectory Anthony Richardson has to hope for. What's the likelihood of that?
Yeah, you have to. What's it like dealing with that? It's really unnerving. I mean, I can feel for all of the Indianapolis Colts fans out there because when Lamar first came out, I didn't like his style of play, and he comes out and he wins MVP, and he did it mainly with his legs, which good on him. And then they said, well, he's going to be a better passer this year. And that's what we heard constantly. Better passer, better passer, better passer. And he just never really was until maybe the last couple of years. And maybe that was because of the weapons that he got now. And maybe we'll get into that. But when you look at week 1, what he did against Kansas City, he passed for, I don't know the exact numbers. I'll just say 240 yards. He ran for another 100 and something yards. And he's been a really outstanding, he looks like an MVP. And I say that in the sense of without Lamar on that team, they look really, really bad. Not that they're looking real good right now at 0-2, but I would say no hope at all for the Baltimore Ravens if you take Lamar Jackson out of that scheme.
Yeah, see, with them, yeah. I think that's gonna be an easy question for me to ask you later on when we get to
Ah,
your boys. So yeah, let's move on from the terrible quarterbacking to let's just keep going. Chargers and the Steelers. That's going to be a slobber knocker. These are two teams that want to run. I got J.K. Dobbins. I had a gut. There was a weird like in the middle of August.
yeah.
I'm like, I have a gut feeling about J.K. He's going to be
Hmm.
pretty good. Where do you have like the Steelers, man? I don't even know if I want to play anybody on there. I have Pickens. He's killing me. Chargers, the receivers do not look great. Johnston decided he could catch a ball, and Herbert looks terrible. So J.K. Dobbins is our man in this game.
Yeah.
I have him. What do I have? I had him at RB5 last week. I don't think I have him as high because of the Steelers defense. But do you have? Where would you put him as far as running backs right now?
I would put him, he's got to be top 10. No doubt about top 10. And yeah, you're playing a Steelers team that has an outstanding defense. And quite honestly, they have the best defensive player in the league. So if you can figure out how to defend Watt, you might be able to get some running room against them. J.K. Dobbins, he's looking almost as good as what he did when he was first coming on with the Ravens before the injuries. He has lost a step though. He's not as fast. If you see him on a lot of his breakaways, he's not being able to run away from guys. He'll run for a 30, 40-yard jaunt, but then he gets taken down at the 15 or the 10 right before the end zone because he's just not able to run away from guys. But Dobbins, how could you not like him? I mean, what is he rushed for 125, 135 yards over the last two games, each game? And that's with Gus Edwards back there with him. So, I think the running game is just fine. Obviously, they're going to lean on JK, but I think this is a game where the defense for Pittsburgh starts to break a little bit. And in doing so, Herbert is not going to have to throw the ball. And you've got Jim Harbaugh as your coach. He loves to run. And I got to tell you, the pickup of Joe Alt, drafting him, what a phenomenal guy he is. I mean, he's just been awesome as a rookie this year at left tackle. So, yeah, I'd still put him in top 10 for sure. He's an RB1, unless you drafted really well and, got like Bijan and then, J.K. Dobbins afterwards or something like that. But he's definitely a starter for sure. Now, no doubt about it.
Yeah, he said a 9 for me this week. I had him up to 5 last week. That looked really smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
the rest of my picks were terrible, so it was a
Yeah.
grueling.
So we're right there. Yeah, 9, 10, top 10. But yeah.
Seahawks and the Dolphins. Yeah, I don't remember if I'm a Dolphins fan. Been a rough week, especially on teams where I have Tyreek, Waddle, Achane looks like a football player. I'm not a big dude. Like I look big because I'm close to the thing. He's about the same height and weight with more muscle. But is this a continued thing? He did plow through the SEC. That's the argument. I was like, oh, he gets hurt all the time, but he's a smaller dude. But he played SEC football, got to get beat up by Alabama, and he was a between the tackles guy. Last week, Derek Carr question: Fool's gold, or is Achane a real?
I think Achane's the real deal. Yeah,
Yes.
Achane's the real deal. And I'm not saying that just to, butter your muffin.
You can come back on next week and the week after,
Yeah, right.
and the week after.
And here's the stupid thing that I benched Achane last week because he was questionable during the week. And it was like, oh my gosh, is he going to start? He's not going to start. There was a lot of, who's going to be the running back there and how many snaps. And he split carries with Mostert in week 1. Now that Mostert's out, Achane is the real deal. And I think I even had a conversation with another individual. The Dolphins are going to start to move away from Mostert a little bit. Your guy for the future is going to be Achane. That's kind of a no-brainer. And now you just have to figure out what your quarterback situation is. I love the signing of Tyler Huntley. I think he's eventually going to be your starting quarterback. Maybe, well, definitely not this weekend, and probably not next weekend, but I would look for him in a week 5, week 6, when Skylar Thompson shows you that he's above average at best. I think Tyler Huntley is a great fit for that offense and the weapons that he's got a strong arm. He's not the most accurate, but he can get the ball to Tyreek Hill and Waddle. So I don't think that they're going to have a problem there. And if Achane wasn't 100% last week and he did what he did, 30 carries, I think, last week, and just, like you said, just bowled over people, that's phenomenal. So definitely not fool's gold on Achane.
So what you're telling me I need to do right now is go pick up Snoop Huntley and throw him in for my on my way. I got some waivers to pull on my Tua team. So
I'm keeping my eyes on him for a backup just in case because he's got the weapons. You put a handful of quarterbacks in there with the weapons that you've got, and it can still be a very efficient offense. And now you're in a division. Obviously, you're not going to forget this with the Bills, who put up a lot of points, and with the Jets, who I think are also going to put up a lot of points. So you're going to have to put up a lot of points.
yeah, and yeah, I had Snoop when we were going through the Lamar injuries years ago, and he'd get some running stuff here and there. Then he'd let you down. Then he looked good. Then he
Hmm.
is. But yeah, I was actually talking about him with my brother before but right as you messaged me tonight, my brother and I was talking about Snoop Huntley. He's like Snoop. I was like Tyler. He's like, oh okay. So you got it. Yeah, you have some receiver quandaries going. Who's the number one receiver in Seattle?
Well, I think a no-brainer is DK. DK is the number one, but I mean, he had a big
Who you want?
touchdown catch last year, but then you've got Tyler Lockett and you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't know. It really is kind of a three-headed monster, but if you're going to make me pick one, I'd still take DK. And I'm still a little, I worry now that in our draft, I had the choice of DJ Moore and DK Metcalf, and I went DJ
Oh,
Moore. I wish I would have went DK Metcalf now.
ooh,
But hey, I had 30 seconds. It was a 30-second
that was
clock, and it's
brutal.
like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, what is going on? It was brutal. You know it. You were there.
yeah. With Skylar Thompson, who I'm with you on Skylar Thompson. He's a good dude. He's a good NFL backup to come in for a few plays to learn from to help. But how low does Tyreek fall in weekly rankings, and how low does Waddle? Just a quick little hit there. How low were they falling for you?
I think they fall quite a bit. You know, in the beginning of the year, when you're talking about Tyreek Hill as a top 5 draft pick, he's obviously, I mean, if you say, well, I'm going to take away Tua, now what do you got? Ooh, well, Tua's going to drop a little bit, kind of like Ayuk did, for holding out. And it was, I think they drop, like I said, it's really just going to be quarterback dependent at this point.
Hmm?
Your wide receivers are really only going to be as good as your quarterback is getting them the ball. We can see that in Chicago right now. And so Tyreek, I would be a little hesitant. I'm not saying don't put him in your lineup, both him and Waddle, keep him in your lineup, definitely do that. But I think we're on a wait and see for the next 2 weeks to see how this whole thing pans out. Last week was not good. So take it week by week.
Tyreek's ECR is like 13 on Fantasy Pros. I got him at 12, and then Waddle I have down at well, I'm higher on Waddle. Waddle is a ECR 31, so
Oh,
yep, they're dropping like lead balloons there. It's the A-Chain show. Okay, yeah, enough about my Dolphins. I've duck forever, so we got to speed through here. It's gonna be the longest show in the world. Panthers and Raiders. Nothing really to say in here except the Panthers are terrible. You don't start anybody, right? No, don't even think about it. Even with the Red Rifle.
no, no, not at all. The only one that you might see a benefit from is Deontay Johnson.
Yeah,
That's about it. I mean, Dalton can pass. We
yeah,
haven't seen him in a couple of years, but the guy can play quarterback. I remember when he would tear us up playing in Cincinnati.
you do.
So the guy can throw the ball, but this one is a keep your guys on your bench. Deontay Johnson might be the only one. Maybe Xavier Legette gets a little bit of a bump. Maybe something happens with Adam Thielen, but no, nothing for them yet. And you bring up the Raiders. I remember I drafted Brock Bowers in I can't remember what round it was. He's my tight end number one.
He's
And I
everywhere.
drafted him in whatever round it was, 8 or 9. And I remember somebody going, what is this guy thinking? And I'm thinking, yeah, Brock Bowers is going to get the damn ball. That's what I'm thinking because everybody's going to be covering Devontae Adams. So outside of Adams and Brock Bowers, I wouldn't recommend starting anybody for the Raiders either.
Yep, that's well, the question. That was gonna be a second question. I've got
Ooh.
some leagues where I'm looking at like Herbert, who's not doing too great, and a couple of guys that are on that, like Trevor Lawrence versus the Bills. Is Gardner Minshew a guy that he's going against the Panthers? Gardner Minshew slings the ball. He's been throwing for 200 some odd yards a week.
Yeah.
Um, Gardner Minshew would would you, what do you think? That I got no question there. Like, is this a thing where you just follow the Panthers and start people against them?
Yes, to an extent. If you take a look at Minshew and what he did against the Ravens last week. Now the Ravens have a number one run defense, but they're like number 27 or number 8 or 27, 28 in passing defense. So the passing defense has not been as good as what it was. So did he tear up a bad, defensive backfield? Absolutely. Is their backfield better than Carolina? Well, it can't be that much better. My only thing when you're talking on a fantasy perspective is when, not if, the Raiders get out to a lead, they stop passing because they know Gardner Minshew is not an elite quarterback. They're only going to do it if they, get stuffed on first and second down and they got a 3rd and 6. And even then they might go to Brock. Unless Dalton really surprises people and starts, putting up two touchdowns a game, because the running game in Carolina is not anything that I would even want to be close to.
I would leave Brooks on the shelf for the year and let him heal. But
yeah, if you got him in a keeper league, it might be something, but
yeah. 49ers and the Rams. Oh, the poor Rams. I feel sorry for them, but the 49ers look terrible. Which Rams receiver the other question my brother asked me, which Rams receiver do you start this week? I have Kupp and Nakua on a team.
Which one isn't hurt?
Well, you're looking at what? Tyler Johnson, you're looking at Tutu Atwell, you're looking at oh man, I just lost the rest of them. Tyler, Tutu, who's the third one? Oh, Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah.
Those are basically the big 3 that aren't hurt, and Cooper might be back sooner than later, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Which you guys start one of those 3 because of the just plethora of guys out. Which one would you start?
Yeah, DeMarcus. I'd start DeMarcus Robinson. I think that's kind of a no-brainer at this point. Tyler Johnson, I like him, but that's only because he's a former Golden Gopher. So, which they haven't done much either. But yeah, DeMarcus Robinson. And, I don't think this is what everybody probably looked at coming into week 3 between these two teams is going to be a big shootout. It's not going to be now. Debo's out. He's out for probably a couple of weeks now, which kills me. But Cooper Kupp not being there, Puka Nacua. I mean, these 3 guys are all like, how is anybody even going to go to this game?
Well, it's not in Carolina, so yes, people will go to the game. It's in Los Angeles, and the stadium's nice at least. So 49ers, you mentioned Debo being down. Who benefits more? Does Brandon Ayuk finally remember to play football now that he's got the bag of cash, or is it a Kittle thing? Because Debo and Kittle are similar kind of styles.
I'm looking at Juwan Jennings, actually.
Ooh, you're going deeper.
I was looking a little bit more into that. When you watch Ayuk play this year, he looks slow. He looks like something is off. And then maybe that's why he hasn't had a lot of catches this year. He hasn't had a lot of looks this year. Jennings has not been bad. He's been more of a number 2 than Ayuk has, but they also haven't really utilized Kittle that much either. The whole team is beat up. So I think it's going to have to be Band-Aid work and, let's see who gets open on this down. But I would even go Juwan Jennings. I'm not saying to take him over Brandon Ayuk, but it would not shock me if Jennings had a better game on Sunday than Ayuk does.
I love Jordan Mason, by the way. He's been saving my butt on my Christian McCaffrey team. Lions and Cardinals, this could be the best game of the late slate, of the afternoon slate, I would say, as far as like 2 teams that you're like, whoa, this is going to be like, we're on here, we're high on Kyler. I got him higher on my dynasty rankings than most people, mainly because he's got Marvin Harrison Jr., who, has got 5 catches now. Lions, Cardinals, I don't even know where. I want to see if you have the cojones. Jahmyr Gibbs or James Conner?
It's funny because I've got Jahmyr Gibbs in my keeper league, and I regret sometimes putting him in. And I'm just looking right now. Do I have him in? Oh yeah, he's my flex guy right now. If there was no David Montgomery, I would say Gibbs all the way. But there is a David Montgomery, and it seems like they are I like Dan Campbell. I think he's a very smart coach.
Yeah.
From what it looks like, he's taken these guys and he's playing them in chunks. So David Montgomery is going to start this game. He's going to play the majority of the first quarter and a half. And then Gibbs is going to come in, and then we'll put, Montgomery or we'll have, both of them in there at the same time. So Connor doesn't have that problem. But the one thing that I'm looking at with this game with the Lions and the Cardinals is I'm not getting my hopes up real high for a very high scoring game, because that's what I anticipated last week with the Bucks and the Lions. It was a good game, but it wasn't like, oh man, somebody's going to put up, 35, 40 points. I would go Gibbs. I would
Yeah,
go Gibbs.
I have him they're within a range. They'd be tiered similar. I got him like three higher, but Connor's just been so good. It's like it's amazing to see that I have Gibbs right setting at like RB8 and Connor at RB11. And as I was looking at that, it made me go back to something I thought of. You know that J.K. Dobbins is ECR RB 23. I was like, holy moly. That's just
Wow.
neither here nor there
Yeah.
because of Pittsburgh. Okay, that's gonna be a fun game to watch. I'm gonna enjoy watching that. Problem is, it's the same time as my Dolphins, so
Ooh.
that'll be on the second screen. Your Ravens versus the Cowboys that just got obliterated. Both of these teams need a bounce back something because they were embarrassed. Your Ravens blew it. I
Mm.
don't know what's going on with them. I mean, the first week they lost because their left tackle couldn't stay on the line apparently. And they just kept getting stupid calls against the Patrick Mahomes. And then the Cowboys, they looked like they might have looked your Golden Gophers might have beat the Cowboys last week. They looked
Yeah.
so terrible. Like they just kept I thought they'd come back and they just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Convince me the Ravens are gonna win this game.
The
And
only
why?
thing that I can say is, and there's a couple of things here, the Ravens need this game more than the Cowboys do. They need this game. And even when I was going through the roster or when I was going through the schedule this year, I had the Ravens at 1-1 at this point. I figured they were going to lose in Kansas City, but that they would win against the Raiders last week. And then they were
Yeah.
on the road in Dallas, and that's going to be a hard one. So, if they can come out of the first three games here and still be 1-2, that's kind of what was expected. So I don't think there's anything that you have to do as far as pushing the panic button. What this is going to come down to is I think it's the quarterback play. And I think it's really fun that we're going to be able to see both of these. Are they elite? Are they not elite quarterbacks out on the field at the same time? If it's down to sheer record, I think Lamar takes this one. And where the Ravens are pissing games away in the fourth quarter. They've been known for it now over the last 5 or 6 years. They've got more fourth quarter blown leads than any other team in football. I think it's going to be a reverse of that. It's going to be a very close game. The Cowboys don't have a very good running game, which is fine
Don't have
because
a
the
hell of
Ravens'
any.
run defense is awesome. The Cowboys have a very good passing game, which is going to be trouble for the Ravens in this one. Now, on the flip side of it, the Cowboys just got annihilated, as you said, by the Saints, and they could run all over them. So maybe the Ravens get their running game going. But it's more of a dire game for the Ravens to win this one because the Cowboys already have a win. They look good against the Browns in week one, against, arguably the best defense in 2023. And then they come out and they just get shellacked by the Saints. But I'll wager a little bit that says the Saints are better than what people thought they were, and maybe Dallas underestimated what they could actually do. Yeah, this is a big one for the Ravens. They need it more. So I think they look in the mirror this week and they go, "We just got our asses kicked by somebody that a team that's not very good, and now we have to prove that we're actually the Ravens that people think we are."
Yeah. Derrick Henry is what's going on? Bounce back?
Oh, he's
Or
being
just
misused. I mean,
okay.
I'm not a fan of Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator in Baltimore. I think when you've got everybody knowing what you're going to do beforehand, and you've got one of the better running backs in the league, Derrick Henry, and one of the better running quarterbacks in the league with Lamar Jackson, you got to put more. You got to put more plays in like that. You got to get them both out on the field. And it opened up a little bit last week where they started to pass to him a little bit more, more RPOs, more something. But Derrick Henry is going to have to be a bigger factor in this game. So I would say bounce back week for Derrick Henry this week, especially against that defense that the Cowboys have, which is, well, like I said, it's not good. And if you look at it, offensive personnel wise between the Saints, and this will be the last thing that I talk about with it, offensive personnel between the Saints and the Ravens, who has a better one?
I would still they're
It,
strong in
it,
different places,
I mean,
right?
it's probably close, right?
Yeah,
You got Olave, you got
I might put the
Shaheed.
Saints barely because of their receivers, but the Ravens, I mean, Ravens' top two receivers are those tight ends, which are so good,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that sort of
You got
counters.
Flowers and Likely, and I think they've got a very similar offensive personnel
Yeah,
to where if the offense, if the Ravens weren't looking at what the Saints did last week to
they're fired.
to basically mimic that same thing with their very similar personnel packages, um, yeah, I don't know. It's all going to come down to Todd Monken.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see what happens. I'll be thinking of you. That's our local. That'll be our local game. Chiefs and the Falcons. Man, I don't think the Chiefs look good, but somehow they're going to probably go to the Super Bowl. The
Mm-hmm.
Falcons. Falcons pulled off what in the world pulled off that miracle on Monday that cost me a game. So Kirk Cousins sort of came out about Patrick Mahomes type numbers in the grand
Yeah.
scheme. If you look at it going down there, is this like Pacheco's out, so the Chiefs are going to have to pass more. Is this the Patrick Mahomes breakout week? Is this the week that you don't want to be facing him because they have to, or somehow is this Carson Steele kid going to be the next Mike Allstott?
I believe that Carson Steele is going to have a big day. I think that they're going to feed this kid the ball as much as he hasn't been used, as much as he wasn't the guy in the backfield, and only because the Falcons' defensive backfield is phenomenal. I mean, they did shut down a pretty decent, albeit without A.J. Brown, Philly offense. I like Bates. Bates is just a ridiculous safety. They've got some good players on there. Was it Matthew Judon that they
Jake
pulled over
Jackson,
from?
yeah.
So, and he was a big addition last week. He did really well against the Eagles. Um, so I think the defense is going to be about as hard as a defense that the Chiefs have faced.
Mhm.
Looking at the offensive side of the ball, Kirk Cousins played maybe 7 quarters of bad football and 1 good one.
Mhm.
So
Yep, 100%.
I still don't think that they have reached their potential in that offense. And maybe Kirk Cousins is shaking the rust off of the Achilles still. But they have more weapons. It was nice to see Drake London actually do something
Yeah, that's we love some Drake London over here.
for once. So I think it's more evenly matched than what people think. I think the spread on that game is 3.5, but I would not be surprised if Atlanta actually wins that game.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes to me right now is, until proven otherwise, he's the best player in football. He could be, by the time he retires, arguments between him and Brady, but we'll see what happens. Let's go to the Monday night games real quickly because, man, we've been talking for a while here. Jags and Bills. This should be a pummel fest, I'm going to assume, because the Jags look much worse than we thought they would do. The Bills aren't as bad as everybody put them down for dead. James Cook apparently is the greatest running back in the league, but Josh Allen pooped the bed last week, just killed me. I have a friend at work who's a Bills fan. I'm a Dolphins fan. So since I met her, I got a new school, and we've been talking smack since August. And I said, if you beat us, which I assume you probably will, because we just can't beat the Bills, I want Josh Allen to score me fantasy points. She came into my room the next day. She's like, hey, where you been? I'm like, I had a lot of work. I wasn't that I was hiding because I knew it was coming. I said, but you didn't do your part. Josh Allen threw for 123 yards or something. I was like, come on, dude. So it makes me think the Dolphins defense might not be as terrible as everybody thinks it is. Josh, this is going to be. Is there any point in even worrying about Josh Allen? He doesn't slip any, does he? He's still the best quarterback for fantasy, right?
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. There's nobody that's really getting it done as much as he is. He can throw the ball. He's got decent wide receivers. He can run the ball. Yeah, he's got a running back back there with Jacksonville. And I would throw this caution to the wind. He might give you similar numbers to last week, only because, and that's, hey, I'm not always right. But I think it's only because Jacksonville has looked so bad that they're not going to have to utilize him as much. He's not going to have to throw 2 touchdowns. Like he very well might if Jacksonville decides to find a defensive front that can stop James Cook. Awesome. Then it'll turn back into the Josh Allen show. But for the time being, Buffalo's defense, I'll say this too. There was a lot of questions about Buffalo's defense coming into this season, and they're top 5, top 6 defense right now. Granted, they didn't play Tua the whole game. Who knows what would have happened there? And Tua looked like he just looked bad even before he got hurt. So
Receivers, it was a messy mess.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Josh Allen not scoring as many points because he doesn't have Diggs and Gabe? Is it because of the new wide receiver crew, or is it because James Cook is getting the ball more?
Yes.
yes, on all of those.
On the week, like James Cook, realistically, if you look at him, he only had 78 yards rushing last week.
Yeah,
on 11 carries. He only touched about 11, so he had the really long run of the busted hole, and then it's just interesting to see the game was miserable. Like, I hate Thursday night games, but that's not here. Yeah, I see them exploding. I see the
Don't
Jags.
give up on Josh Allen, though, obviously. I mean, I can't imagine that anybody is going to.
He's still my QB1, not changing.
Buffalo still has a very hard schedule this year. They will be relying on Josh Allen a lot.
Yeah, the other game on Monday night, which I'm sure everybody's excited to see, is the Commanders versus the Bengals. Why does that got to be the last game we talk about? Because I got a question for you. So if you had Braylon Allen or Terry McLaurin, which one of those two guys would you start this week? Are you done with Terry McLaurin, or are you going to put in
That is
Allen?
an excellent question. I have gone back and forth on that one. Considering the fact, when I'm looking at my wide receiver crew now has been depleted of Deebo Samuel. I have Calvin Ridley. I've got DJ Moore. I've got Quentin Johnson, who I didn't really plan on playing that much, but I'm glad that I did last week. And it bumps Terry McLaurin out. And Terry McLaurin is supposed to be good. It's like when you drafted him, at least for me, when I was looking at him, I'm like, oh, well, they got rid of Jahan Dotson. Who else are they going to throw to except for Terry McLaurin? Well, apparently they're just not going to throw the ball at all.
Nope.
I mean, what did he have? Maybe 4 receptions for 30 yards last week. It was just, and the week before that,
6 for 22.
You're 22 yards. Yeah. How do you do that on 6 receptions, by the way?
3.7 average.
But no, I do have Braylon Allen. I'm starting Bijan and Carson Steele. I was happy to get him on waivers, but I've got Braylon Allen back there going, the Jets could run up the score tonight, or I guess a Thursday night. This is going to air after the game. They could run up the score on New England, and then that means more Braylon Allen. Well, he had a rushing touchdown and he had a receiving touchdown. So it's like, McLaurin hasn't done anything for me. Yeah, sure, he's still projected to do well, but I don't like Jaden Daniels. So are they going to have to throw the ball more? I think they are, because Cincinnati should be putting up close to 28 points in this game. They should be, because the Washington's defense is awful. They should actually be getting close to 35 points this week. So they're going to have to throw, but the question is, to who? Is there anyone else on that team?
Austin Eckler.
Is Luke McCaffrey playing?
No.
It's going to be another ugly game.
And is this the week that Chase remembers he's a football player?
Gosh, I hope so. I mean,
so do I. I have him in a lot of places, and it's been
because I've got Burrow, and he didn't do me any favors in week 1, but last week at least he did something. So,
no. Well, there we go, Jeff. Appreciate having you on here. Take one last moment here before we close out. Promote your stuff. Promote yourself.
It's been fun. Here it is again. We just like to talk football, and I'm looking for other people as well, with DJ Dove, and, trying to just have this fun thing happen without the talking heads like Nick Wright, who you listen to that guy and he's got some of I don't know if he just does it for clicks or what, but he's got some of the worst takes that I've ever heard in football. Completely loves Mahomes. He's the best quarterback that's ever played the game and completely hates other teams. And, I do like Colin Cowherd. I listen to him, but a lot of them say the same stuff. Much like DJ Dove, I immerse myself in fantasy football, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours a day. So constantly looking at who's injured, who's playing, who's not. I crunch the numbers so much, I second guess myself, but it is fun to actually have those conversations with other people and bounce stuff off. So if you've got questions, go to the Fantasy Couriers, go to me. But yeah, it's football. It's all for fun. I love it. Go visit my stuff, downfieldread.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on X. I'm thinking about doing Instagram next, Facebook, all that fun stuff. So yeah, check it out. If you like what I'm doing, follow along. The more people I get to follow me. And if I can get some advertisement, then I start doing contests. And
there we go. So, okay. As we get in, I got all of his stuff there on the links, downfieldread.com, Spotify, and YouTube on there. And you can hit everything else through that. Yeah. Or else my podcast doesn't be too long. So thanks for having us. The key point there is enjoy fantasy. That's all we're doing here. We enjoy to have fun. It is only week 3, everybody. So don't give up yet. And as always, trust yourself and trust the process.